Hello, this is Broyar, and welcome back to another first impressions video for Civilization 6 Gathering Storm. Today we're looking at the Incan Civilization, which is new to Civilization 6, but definitely not new to the series as a whole. It's actually been in every single version of the game, going all the way back to Civilization 2. And actually, Pachacuti here was even most recently in Civilization 5. We're going to see some similarities to the Civilization 5 civilization, but I also think that there are some unique things about the Incan Empire that they've done with them that really play into some of the new features they put into Gathering Storm, which really kind of helps to explain maybe why they weren't in the game earlier on. So let's go ahead and jump into the video.
Pachacuti leads the Inca in Civilization 6 Gathering Storm. Though many of the details of his remarkable reign are lost to history, Pachacuti led the expansion of Cusco into the organized and powerful Incan Empire. The Inca's unique improvement is the Terrace Farm. These can only be placed on hills and provide food, plus additional food for adjacent mountains.
All right, so the Terrace Farms here, we've actually seen before. These are actually the improvement that they got in Civilization 5 with a very similar bonus where you can only put them on hills and they get a bonus for adjacent mountains. So nothing really new here, although I do think these look really, really cool. I'm really liking the kind of the 3D aspect here that we're seeing. But I think there's another extra little bonus that they're going to add in here later on, which will help to make these even more powerful than the Civilization 5, predecessors, if you will.
Terrace Farms also provide production for adjacent aqueducts and fresh water.
So production for adjacent aqueducts and fresh water, that's new. I don't think we saw that in Civilization 5. So that's going to actually help make them not only good food producers, but also, really good production places as well. So that's going to be helpful quite a bit. And again, I think there's still one more bonus to come.
The Inca's unique ability is Mita, which allows citizens to work mountain tiles. Mountain tiles provide production as well as food for adjacent terrace farms.
So mountain tiles can now be worked by the Incan. That is incredibly cool. Obviously we can see here, it's not a ton of, actually that's 5 food right there. I was going to say it's not a ton of food. That larger food circle there is actually 5 food, 2 production for a mountain tile. What? That is pretty crazy. So these are going to be very worthwhile for the Incan Empire to be able to work with, and obviously putting the Terrace Farm right next to it makes it even more powerful. So those combinations, the mountains make the Terrace Farms more powerful, and the Terrace Farms make the mountains more powerful. That's a really, really good combo for them, and it's really going to help them to have a lot more useful tiles than you might normally see by a civilization that is has a tendency to live near the mountains. Normally, the mountains would basically do nothing for you. But as we know, Civilization 6 Gathering Storm is going to add a few other features that are going to allow mountains to be a little bit more worthwhile. There's even some improvements later on in the game, like ski resort and some other things like that, that are going to really make mountains kind of useful. And the Incan are going to be able to take advantage of that even more. So this is really cool.
The Warak'aq is the Inca's unique unit. This medieval reconnaissance unit can attack twice in a turn if it hasn't used all of its movement points.
So we got the Warak'aq here, which is they said it's a medieval reconnaissance unit, which they also introduced the skirmisher, which is going to fill that gap between the early scouts and kind of some of the later game scouting reconnaissance type units, which is really, really good because I think there was definitely a gap there. You got your scouts, but you couldn't keep them alive or couldn't do anything with them long enough to be able to promote them into some of those really cool late game promotion trees, like being able to not be visible, having that stealth kind of component, things like that. So having these guys kind of fill in the gap, both either these guys for the Incans or the skirmishers for every other civilization, is a really, really good addition to the game as a whole. And so, like I said, I think these being medieval, we're going to see in a second, these probably replace the skirmishers. Being able to attack twice. This guy right here has 3 movement points. So he's going to be able to move into a flat tile terrain and then attack twice after that. Are these guys suddenly better than archers? Maybe not, because they only have 1 range. But, they are definitely fitting that skirmisher role. A kind of a get into a melee range, but using those ranged attacks so that you don't have the counterattacks against you at the time. So it's an interesting spot for them, and how are you going to use them into your military? I don't know. They're going to be very much more mobile than most of your other archers and things like that. Both these and again the skirmishers as well. If you get some of those up those promotion chains, some really good promotions, like I said, where they can't be visible or they get some extra strength and things like that. So being able to keep your scouting type units, your reconnaissance units alive longer throughout the game could make them more a part of a standard military setup. So we'll have to see how that works.
Pachacuti's unique ability is Copic Neon. Domestic trade routes get additional food for mountains in the origin city.
So we're going to pause for a second here and look at all of these real quick because there's obviously a lot here to see. I'm going to abuse the wording, but I think she said Copic Neon, something like that. I'm so sorry for the pronunciations. But domestic trade routes gain +1 food for every mountain tile in the origin city. And you gain the improvement, the specific improvement when foreign trade civics discovered, which is the Okay. She's going to get to that in a second. I'm sorry. I was reading down a little bit further that improvement that we have. But let's start with the trade route thing. +1 food for every mountain tile in the origin city. I mean, you could have, 6, 7, 8 food in your mountain, say 8 mountain tiles, or say in your city starts quite easily, especially with some of the new map improvements that they're making where, you're going to see a lot more good mountain ranges along some of the continental, divides and things like that, which is presumably where the Incans are going to spawn at. They're going to spawn near some of those huge mountain ranges and be able to nestle in between some good, maybe have more than one mountain range around, like you can see in some of the videos here. So you're going to be able to have, several mountain tiles within range of all of your cities, quite frankly. And so being able to have that much more food from all of those, plus you're going to have your terrace farms, plus you're going to be able to work the mountains for food. The Incan Empire is going to be able to grow really tall. Just incredibly tall. You're not going to have a lot of cities because all your fewer cities maybe are going to just be that much taller. You may not even want to, settle outside of the mountain ranges. So just settle all around the mountain ranges, 5, 6, 7, 8 cities, whatever that ends up being, and just grow as tall as you can and just end up being powerful from that alone. So I think this is really cool. And obviously these are domestic trade routes. So it's really pushing towards that whole idea of kind of trade with yourself and kind of leave everybody else to fend for themselves and do their own thing. So kind of cool. Anything else here we would say? So citizens may work mountain tiles, and mountain tiles provide +2 production and +1 food to mountain tiles for every adjacent terrace farm. So again, depending on where you're at, like if you have a single terrace farm with, several mountain tiles around it, that terrace farm is going to be better. But obviously those mountain tiles are going to be maybe less food. But then if it's the other way around, you have like maybe a single mountain tile with a bunch of terrace farms around it, those terrace farms themselves will not be as strong, but the mountain will be much stronger. So I guess what I'm getting at is I think there's a good balance there. No matter how many mountain tiles or how many terrace farm tiles you're able to put up, you're going to have a pretty good balance of, one of them is going to get a pretty good bonus or the other, depending on which one you have the majority surrounding the other with, if that makes sense. I'm not sure if I'm explaining that clearly enough. Obviously, again, we talked about the unique medieval unit that gets a +1 additional attack, which is really cool. We're about to talk about the builder unique improvement. We'll get to that here in a moment, so I'll let her talk about that before we speak to it. But we also have this other one, which is the Terrace Farm. Again, +1 food, provides +1 housing for every 2 terrace farms. Okay, they didn't mention that specifically, but that kind of goes along the ideas of just normal farms, kind of that motif of getting the housing from farms. You get +1 food for every adjacent mountain tile. Again, we talked about that. Gain +2 production for each adjacent aqueduct district. So presumably you could maybe nestle a couple aqueduct districts nearby from multiple cities to make one specific terrace farm even more powerful. But you also get +1 production if adjacent to fresh water. That shouldn't be too hard to achieve. But not an aqueduct district specifically in that case. An additional food as you advance through the civics and technology tree for adjacency with other terrace farms. So presumably you get the adjacency like other farms get when you get the feudalism and things of that nature. Can only be placed on grassland hills, plains hills, and desert hills. Now the grassland hills and plains hills make sense. Desert hills are going to be interesting to be able to place these on because that's going to make desert hills potentially, much more worthwhile, especially if you're not able to get Petra, for example, which is pretty much the only other way to get desert hills to be sort of worth anything. So being able to put these farms on desert hills is kind of a cool addition as well. But obviously being only available on hills does limit them quite a bit. But presumably, and I'm hoping that the map formation where be in such a way that if you have a lot of mountains, you're going to have a lot of hills as well, because, I feel like that kind of fits that vibe of, the mountains kind of falling down into hilly terrain, stuff like that, with maybe a little bit less, flat terrain in the middle. So we'll see how that plays out with the map generations that they're changing, and kind of see what kind of maps we come up with and how many hills we're actually able to take advantage of with the Incans here. So let's keep going and learn about this other unique improvement.
He also has access to the Copic Neon improvement, an early version of the new mountain tunnel, after discovering foreign trade.
So Copic Neon is how she pronounced it. So I apologize for mispronouncing that earlier. But it's an early version of the mountain tunnel. So presumably it is just the mountain tunnel. I can't imagine the mountain tunnel will add anything to this or change anything here. We still don't really know how these mountain tunnels kind of work, to be perfectly honest. I'm not sure that we've seen any specific feedback about them. Here I saw her put the worker next to it, and the mountain tunnel spawned up. But how do you choose the ending location? Or I honestly don't know how it works. I really don't. It looks like here there's an exit to the right of this unit, and the entrance is just north of that. And there's a couple of volcanoes. Man, there's several volcanoes around here. Wow. But I honestly don't know exactly how that works. If maybe you have to go next to one to put the entrance and go next to another one to put another exit, or whatever. Maybe if you put multiples within the same mountain range, they all act as entrances and exits. I actually don't know how this works, but we'll see that once we get more into the gameplay, and hopefully they show us a little bit more, presumably tomorrow, or I guess. Yeah, hopefully tomorrow during the live stream. So we'll see how these work. But again, getting them earlier means you're going to be surrounded by mountains, but you're not going to be blocked off by the mountains. So you're going to be able to get out of your mountain safety, a lot easier than anybody else, and be able to kind of stay kind of secluded and as I was going to say here in a moment, be an isolationist, civilization where, yeah, sure, you can get out and see other people, but maybe you keep the other people from getting in to see you. So
for the Inca, mountain tiles are more than just great defenses. Pachacuti's unique ability, along with plenty of Terrace Farms, means the Inca will truly thrive in their sprawling mountain cities.
All right, so if we can look at here, there are mountains all over the place and just amazing places for cities. Over here on the right side of the screen, we see a tile that has 4 mountains right around it. That's a great place. Is that a hill? I can't really tell if it's a hill from here. It looks hilly, right? Yeah. So, that would be an amazing place for a terrace farm. Even the one just northwest of it where it's got the scout on the forest tile. That looks like a good place for a terrace farm as well. Even the mountain, to the left of that scout is completely surrounded by, maybe not that watery kind of marshy area, but everything else looks like hills. So, you put 3 terrace farms there, that mountain tile suddenly gets a huge bonus. So, I'm sure they picked a very ideal spot to show in this video, but this is a really good start right here. There's a lot of mountains, a lot of rivers, a lot of hills. This would be, I would love to start. Can we get the seed here for this one? But anyway, this is going to be a fun civilization, I think, to play very defensive minded, and really kind of grow as tall as you possibly want to be, because you're going to get plenty of food, plenty of production, maybe go for, science victory because of all that extra production. You're going to be tall, so that kind of plays into that science victory motif. I don't know, culture. Not really anything jumping out at me culture related. Religion, maybe. It could be. I'm not sure. Domination, maybe less so than some of the other civilizations, but I think they're definitely very capable. They're going to have the production to be able to field a large army. So, but I do think science potentially is going to be their bread and butter here for this particular civilization, if I must be honest. And I love these volcanoes here in the southern part of this, or the bottom part of the screen. That is going to be one thing. They're going to have a lot of volcanoes around them, most likely. So, going to see how that plays into, destroying their terrace farms quite a bit.
As Pachacuti, you can lead your civilization without worrying too much about outside influence. Internal trade routes are stronger than ever, making this a great isolationist civilization. Will your civilization reach its peak in the mountains? How will you lead the Inca in Sid Meier's Civilization 6, Gathering Storm?
Will your civilization reach its peak in the mountains? Very funny. That was a good little pun there. But seriously, some of those trade routes had like 9 food, 10 food, several production, gold, all the other things going, combined. Obviously, they're going to be a very trade-focused civilization, but trade focused in a domestic way. You add on some of the other domestic bonuses, you're going to have highly productive cities with huge amounts of food, huge amounts of production, just from the trade routes and the tiles around them, combined. And it's a really good synergy there. And I do think, like I said, it plays very well into some of the new features with Gathering Storm of being able to put some more stuff on top of mountains, work with mountains a lot more, the volcano effects and things like that can kind of come down and, have a little bit of a, you know, change your strategy a little bit. Do you really settle next to that volcano or not? Because that is going to, impact things a bit. So I'm really looking forward to playing the Civilization. I think the Civilization looks like a lot of fun. Again, very likely more of a science civilization because of that production and then, the high growth than anything. But it's going to be exciting to see what other people come up with as far as what they want to play and how they want to play with this civilization. Please let me know what you think about this civilization in the comments below. Let me know if you like or dislike this video. And I do appreciate you watching. If you haven't already, please subscribe to this channel. It's and let me know that you support this, and I will continue to make these as much as I can. I'm hoping to get into the A to Z stuff and really get into more of a deep dive with these civilizations once the expansion actually comes out. We can actually get hands-on with these. But so far, every single one of the civilizations they've announced so far has been just as good, if not better, than the previous one. And I'm really excited to jump into this expansion already. And we have so many more civilizations to hear about. So it's really cool. I hope you enjoy it, and I do thank you. Goodbye.